Hello.
Hey, welcome to another episode of CA Ultra. It's a little bit of a somber one.
Yeah.
We've been somber for a little while, but also there's a new hope. There is hope in the future, and I'm excited.
Yeah. So obviously, we're making this video because if you're a Toronto Ultra fan, you would already know this, or just honestly a CDL fan in general, and that is sort of the face of the franchise. Definitely our star player over the past 2 years. Methodz has actually been benched by, I assume, like the organization, the coach. This came out just pretty recently. He made a tweet on Twitter about it, and sort of they're replacing him with Insight in the starting lineup. So Insight obviously was our fifth member. He was the substitute. People might know him from the days in Black Ops 4 where he played on Singularity alongside Kleenex, or even, Singularity last year in Modern Warfare. And this year he's sort of been on a tear as of recent in the AM scene, actually winning back-to-back amateur tournaments alongside Decimate, Draza, and Twerk. So definitely, I think, a move that I would say we saw. I don't want to say saw it coming, but I definitely obviously saw the potential of this move eventually happening. I mean, again, it was no surprise that when the roster was announced, we only had one sub, and that sub could only potentially sub out Methodz. I think the writing was, I don't want to say on the wall, but it definitely was in the back of some people's minds. But I was a little bit surprised to see it happen so quickly, especially when I don't think that, well, I do think that changes were necessary. I don't know if Methodz was the root cause of said changes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. Let's just be clear. This is really the only move that Toronto Ultra can make. And I feel like something needed to happen after the 2 weeks of just poor performances, right?
I don't want to say the only move they could have made, because I think there's still a possibility they could have went out and signed somebody else. But you're right, with obviously the
only
stuff.
Only short term move, right?
With the
like going out and signing somebody else is, I would think, a little bit more of a long term move. Like, as in playing with the cards you already have, not adding new cards. It's the only card we could have played, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, if you look at the way that the roster was constructed, and you took out the possibility of going out and getting like a Venom, or trying to get Pred, even though the visa issues that might not work out, I agree that you're right in terms of just like, hey, like, let's go to somebody who we already have under contract and putting them in. The only option was Insight, and if you bring Insight in, he's not going to replace Cammy. He's definitely not going to replace Kleenex. So if you bring somebody like Insight in, unfortunately, the only person I think you can take out is Methodz. So for that, yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think we're gonna like briefly address in a second, strategically why we think it may help, but also why we don't think it's like the long-term solution we need for this team right now. But I think it's really, really important to address how the community has reacted to the signing. Now, obviously, we think the reaction has, or at least I do. I can't speak for Spencer, but I think the reaction has been unfortunate.
In some ways,
there's two sides of the coin. In two sides in two ways. I mean, on the one side of the coin, it's not the best look that Sydney has been performing fairly decently on an individual level over the past little while, and seeming to have been blindsided by the coaching staff. Seems a little bit off-putting. But what we've been seeing a lot of is a lot of hate drawn towards Insight. And that's one thing we never like to see, because you can't deny Insight has very much earned his right to have a shot at the starting position.
Yeah, and so that's why I say there's two sides to this coin. On one hand, I think a lot of the community rallied around Methodz to show support. I think that's great. Like, man, I love Methodz, right? Like, he was a fan of the show. He DM'd us when we first started this, and he had no reason to kind of stick his neck out and talk to us, right? He actually came on the show when they clutched that one versus one, that homestand versus phase. Like, Methodz as an individual, I really like, and I'll always be a fan of Methodz, and I still consider that phase series, both the 1v2 clutch and the Ninja Diffuse, probably two of, if not, one of the greatest moments in Toronto esports history. So he will always cement himself, I think, in the history of Toronto esports. And I mean, if things continue to grow and we look back, like, he has like itched his name in like history, right? So I am all for people showing support for Methodz, but like, if you want to show support for Methodz, like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, follow him. Like, he has that clothing brand, Better Days Ahead, right? Like, you can follow that and support him through that means. You can follow him on Twitter. You can, subscribe to his YouTube, follow his Twitch, like, follow him in Tier 2, right? He said that he's playing the Tier 2 alongside Decimate, Draza, and Twerk, and I expect that to be a very, very competitive roster as well. So there's like a lot of ways I think you could support an individual while simultaneously like not tearing down somebody else. Because you're right, there are people out there who are like shitting on the org, who are shitting on Insight, and like at the end of the day, if it's a sport, and if it's what the team thought was best, like if it's what the team thought was best, you know what I mean? And you're right, Insight's been one of the best amateurs in the league for the past 2 years, right? Like he's won at every level. He's won in EU, he's won in NA. He actually, funny enough, in Black Ops 4 beat not only Methodz but also Formal in that group stage alongside Kleenex at LAN. People kind of forget that. So I don't like this like notion that Insight's some like EU scrub who's only getting in because Marky B is an EU coach. Like Insight's talented. And people I think are going to see that. And hey, is he the solution? Is this going to solve all of Ultra's problems? Probably not. But let's not act like he doesn't deserve this opportunity. And let's not act like this couldn't potentially help the team, because I think it very much could.
Yeah, I think it could definitely help the team too. Let's expand a little bit more on your last thought there. You said it's may help the team, but it's not going to solve their issues. Why don't you think so?
So I think when we had watched their performances over the last couple of weeks, and especially at Champs, I do think that the team lacked a little bit more in map pressure and sort of their teamwork and their team coordination in terms of like, I still think they play pretty individualistic. I think they have difficulties trading out their kills, especially on like Control, for instance, and S&D. It's more noticeable. And I think when you take the combination of like lack of map pressure and sort of like that more individualistic play style, I attribute it a little bit more to not having a true second aggressive SMG to pair alongside Kleenex. So I would have liked to have seen them potentially look into another option like that, whether that be bringing on a guy like Venom, for instance, or like I said, trying to go out there and get a guy like Pred and bring them in and pair them alongside Cleanups to see if that maybe opened up more space for Methodz. Because yeah, Methodz, I think, was playing slow in relation to the rest of his team. I do think he plays that like slower, more baity style. And obviously we know that sort of maybe his comms aren't the greatest in terms of that IGL personality. So maybe the reason why the team was playing more individualistic was, again, maybe due to a lack of leadership. But I'm not entirely sure. But I think that like I would have looked into more of the SMG role first before I'd made the Methodz for Insight swap.
Yeah, I agree with that. It seems like there's definitely an opportunity to get some more aggression on our team and to pair of Kleenex, and like you said, in turn be able to get better trades and put more map pressure on other teams. That being said, I feel like we can definitely not only help out with that teamwork side because of the possible leadership ability that Insight brings, but you can't forget that Insight and Kleenex do have that chemistry. From the AM side and their AM days together. So it's important to note that, we can have some SMG AR synergies as well between, Kleenex and Insight, hopefully. I mean, not quite sure what's going on in scrims right now and how is that going, but I'll be definitely looking forward to this upcoming week just to see how that unfolds, and I'll be keeping an eye on that specifically.
Yeah, like I said, this is there's ways to look at this. It could be that, again, it's unfortunate because I think like the way the community handled the situation has like left me like trying to defend and hype up Insight more than I initially like wanted to, right? When this first happened, like I was very much like, hey, maybe not the move I would have made. A lot of respect to Methodz. I wish him but the best, but I almost expected it to almost be the other way around. But instead, like everyone was just dunking on Insight about he's nobody. So I'm almost like, I feel like I have to defend this guy, maybe more than I had initially thought that I would have to. But yeah, I think that you could have looked at it one of two ways. I think Methodz was playing with a little bit of a different pace as the rest of the team. So was that because the SMGs weren't being aggressive enough, i.e. it was only Kleenex, so if he was losing his battles, they didn't create enough space for Methodz to sort of push up and take those more aggressive angles and be a little bit more, get those more engagements, or was it vice versa? Was it that Methodz wasn't playing up to the level, so, Kleenex and maybe Bandits didn't feel that they got the support from the AR position, so that's why they were playing slower, and that's why maybe they were getting, like, fried as much, like, I'm not entirely sure, but I think no matter which way you look at this, like at the end of the day, the team was in a direction that I think neither of us really want to see. And I think that the team probably needed a change. And yeah, you said it best at the very beginning. Like at the end of the day, like it was sort of the only option we had with the cards that we were currently holding.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I'm excited to see what they can do.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes, and we'll be here giving you guys our thoughts on what's happening next week too. So hey, if you liked what you hear, if you liked our content, please hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps out that YouTube algorithm when pushing out to other Toronto and Call of Duty and Ultra fans as well. And let us know what your thoughts are. Hey, throw them in the comments below. We're always happy to have conversations with everybody who shares their thoughts. We like getting insights from you guys as well.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. So, guys, if you guys enjoyed it, please let us know your thoughts. This is one of those things where I don't think it's a black and white situation. I don't think it's cut and dry, but I think that Chris, I don't know, what do you think about Insight? You know what I mean? Is this going to work out? Before we head off here, is this a good decision?
Yeah, I think it's a good decision. I think it's a good decision partly because it's their only decision. But also we saw Insight win the most recent tournament against Civ. Was it Civ?
Yeah, Civ and Co. They knocked out Westar. They beat BBG, which was Kismet, Goddard Dude, Insight dropped 1.67 KD in that final series, had over 100 kills. Dropped what did he start at 31 and 13 or something like that in the control. Again, people I think in this community are really sleeping on Insight, and I really think I'm like, man, you can support Methodz and not tear down Insight. Insight is good. Trust me. If you're people who are saying that Toronto's not going to win, they're going to be last. Your Insight is good. Don't sleep on his talent. And I just for the record, I really hope Methodz bounces back. I'm going to be watching him in that tier 2 tournament. I expect that team to do well. I expect them to be top 4 with Methodz in there. I think that team should succeed. So I'm gonna put Better Days Ahead and all that in the description below for you guys if you want to support his you know what I mean, that clothing apparel for him. And I think that's the best way to handle the situation. I also think just before we go, I think Methodz handled it really well. I think he made the tweet, got ahead of it, owned up to it. Obviously stated that he didn't agree with the decision, which you should expect. He's a competitor. I respect that. And kind of his willingness to go into challengers and grind his way back up. You absolutely respect that as a Toronto fan. So I wish him nothing but the best. And hopefully the Insight works out for the Toronto Ultra as well, as I definitely think it can.
I agree. I've always respected his online presence and his mentality.
Yeah.
Just getting better. So hey, with that, thanks for listening, guys. Let's see you guys next week.
And as always, enjoy.